Hello and welcome to Hardy Party of 5.5.
Welcome.
Rebecca, you look really nice today.
And I like your hat as well.
Thank you. We've got a little Ranger gear on today that we're going to talk about.
That's right.
And this is all about City Connect.
Mm-hmm.
And this is something that Major League Baseball and Nike has done. And the idea is to look at each city that has a team and connect a uniform that goes with like the history of baseball in the town or just something that the town is famous for.
Right.
And the idea is to just like have something unique for each major league team.
Yeah.
Which to me, like you have some people we've talked to about this that are like, oh, this is just a money grab.
Mm-hmm.
The major leagues just want more money. Nike wants more money. And I'm like, yeah, they do. Which I totally understand that. But I also think it's a way to connect with younger fans.
Yeah.
And I think that's, especially in a game that I love like baseball, I think it's very important that we engage with the young fan.
Yeah.
So we're going to talk about that and how these things are helping baseball thrive and not die.
Yeah.
So, and what we have here, we're going to start out with a list. Like I think 18 teams have come out with their Connect jerseys, and they're coming out maybe 5 or 6 every season.
Mm-hmm.
So ESPN has ranked them. Their writers have ranked what they think are the top 10. So we're going to go through the top 10 really quick, and then we have a special guest that's going to take us through what the Rangers did.
That's right.
So who was number 10 for
number
the
10
ESPN?
was the Arizona Diamondbacks. Now, they have a cool jersey because it's the cream color that the Rangers one is.
Yeah,
and
which is kind of a throwback feel.
Yeah, it's a throwback feel. The cream color is definitely a throwback feel. I would hate to try to keep it clean because you can't just throw some bleach on that. Have you thought about that?
Well, I think you have people that work with the teams, and that's all they do is clean uniforms.
Okay, well,
right.
I wish I had one of those around.
Yeah, we need one of those.
All right, so the Diamondbacks have Serpentinas written on their shirt, which I'm assuming is Diamondback in Spanish.
Yeah.
Or snake in Spanish. So it's kind of cool. I like the font. It's not just like super grabbing me.
Yeah, it doesn't pop out to me.
Yeah, that's
so yeah.
Out. Number 9 is the Texas Rangers. So we're not going to go into detail about that one because coming up, we got this amazing guest. He's going to tell you all about it.
Well, I will say one thing. It should be a lot higher on this list.
It should be,
in my opinion.
Higher. Yes.
Maybe I'm a little biased.
Yeah. But. Number 8, the Houston Astros. Their jersey, is that navy or black?
I believe it's navy.
Okay. It looks kind of navy to me. And I really like navy and orange together.
And it says Space City.
It says Space City. Which
so
is
it's tying into NASA and everything that Houston's got going on.
So you can see like how that connects to the actual city. Like they put some thought into that. There's not quite as much going on as could be, I think, to help like draw in some history.
Yeah.
But I kind of like Space City and I like the navy orange. It's not my favorite on the list, but it's up there. Okay, Boston Red Sox, which surprisingly their jersey is yellow.
And I think maybe I think of the subway system in Boston, and I think that's maybe where they got the yellow and blues of the subway area or something. It's totally different. I'd have to look into, and we're going to talk about this with our guest, is you see it and you kind of question your mind, okay, why did the Red Sox go yellow and blue?
Yeah.
So then you have to like take it in and find out what the whys were for that.
Right.
So initially I'm like, what is this? Yeah.
That's kind of the theme with the Cityscape shirts is that you can't just take them for what they look like on face value. There's a meaning behind pretty much everything that's done on them, and you got to figure that out to really appreciate the apparel.
Right.
I like
Padres number 6.
The Padres. They kind of give me like a Cool Runnings vibe. Right.
Yeah, very like Latin American.
I think it's really cool. I really like that shirt.
Hey, the Nationals are at number 5. What do you think of this one? It's gray with, what do you call those that you always want to see when we go to cherry blossoms? Yeah,
so obviously bringing in the history of the city.
Yeah.
Is it a baseball thing? I don't think so. I wonder how these guys feel about wearing pink flowers on their jersey. I mean, for Mother's Day, maybe. There's a time when they wear pink, but I don't know. I like the font of the
font is cool.
And it has some pink in the font too. Yeah, so I don't know. It's me.
And then Seattle, which just came out after the Rangers, is number 4.
Number 4, and it's blue with Seattle on it. I don't know. There's something on the sleeve there that I'm sure means something.
Yeah.
So they've got.
And they have like the pitchfork
on the hat.
What do you call that? Neptune.
Yeah.
Is that?
It's what he holds, but I don't know what it's called.
Is that his name? King Neptune is the king of the sea or whatever.
Yep.
I'm mixing up all my mythology now. So.
All right, Miami Marlins. This doesn't even give me a good picture.
The
of
picture's
this.
not great, but it's like basically an orange with big cursive Miami on it.
Okay.
And I think it's like, to me, it's San Diego Light. Like they kind of went into the Latin American, but not as far as San Diego did.
Yeah, I'm sure that the crown means something here,
Yeah.
and the whole shape of that looks like a ghost from Pac-Man. So I'm not sure about that one. I really like Chicago White Sox. It says South Side on it. I think that's just like a cool vibe.
I think it's super cool. I love the look. It's
Pinstripe.
it's not much different than their normal uniforms though.
Well,
but I see where they went with it, but when everyone else did something so different than what they usually do, I would like to see, while it looks really cool, it feels like it should be their everyday uniform.
Yeah.
You know.
No, it's pretty cool. I like that dark gray too. It's not quite black. It's
and now there's a controversial number one. I don't know about this one. It's the Colorado Rockies.
Yeah.
And it's basically dark green pants into a dark green shirt that has the shoulders are white and it's got the outline of the mountains, which to me looks like a Colorado license plate.
It does look like a Colorado license plate. That's exactly what it looks like.
This would not be near my number one.
Nope. Not near my number one.
Although it's totally different than their normal uniform.
Yeah.
It's just not one that's like, I don't know. I just think license plate.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know that I could say my favorite of this list is the Astros, mainly because it's the Astros.
Oh, I can't believe you're going there. I didn't know this was going to happen.
Well, it is.
We're going to have to edit this out. So you do like the Astros the best?
I can't be
Space City?
I kind of like that one, and then I like the White Sox.
Okay.
Yeah. What about you?
I'm going to have to say, this is going to sound like I'm a homer, but after looking at all of them, I think Seattle's kind of cool to me because I like the simplicity of Seattle, and I like the blue and the gold going together. But I really do like the Rangers because it's so different than what I expected it to be.
Yes.
And like we're going to talk about with our guest, initially I was like, whoa, this is way too much. But now I've gotten to where I really love it.
Yeah, and I think that's just exactly what I was saying. You have to know all the elements to really appreciate the thought that went in the 3-year process of thinking these through. I mean, it's a lot. It's a lot to take in, and it really does make you kind of warm up to all of it and really understand it. And then eventually you'll be very satisfied with the entire jersey. And I love it so much. So we guys hope you enjoy our interview today with Scott Biggers. He is the creative director for the Texas Rangers.
First off, you better remember what that sign say before you come down here. Don't mess with Texas. Hey, see y'all from Texas, where we sit riding swangers and put diamonds in our niggas. Pour drink inside my lemonade till it looks like a bitch. See, I come from the D where we got checks and we be flexing. If you ain't from my state, then you should know, don't listen, Texas. Hey, this Texas tea is what I drink. Sauce Walker had us dripping, Sauce had been on drink. Young Nasa had us jigging, dipping, ain't know how to think. Now I got all these stepping, swiping, catching plays. Hey. Don't mess with Texas.
Excited to have you on Hardy Party at 5.5 today. Thanks for taking time out of your day to talk to us a little bit. So we appreciate it. Of course. Yes, you are the creative director for the 2 games up in the West, right? Right now, Texas Rangers.
Yes, thank you for acknowledging that. Yeah, the first place feeling is pretty good.
Yeah, we have to savor that as long as we can.
Yes,
because you never know.
Yeah, we were at the game.
I know.
It was a great time. It was
the roof was open, sun was shining.
It was beautiful.
Yeah, that was really cool.
That's right. So
I'm glad you guys made it out.
Yeah. Oh, it's great. Yeah. So I'm married to a creative. I don't know if you know that Scott is a very creative and talented person, but he probably knows a lot about your job, but explain it to me. Describe what you do for the Texas Rangers.
Sure. Yeah, I'm the creative director in the marketing group, which means that anything that we do with regard to our brand, any of the creative work that we put out that reaches out to fans and brings the Rangers to life. That's part of what I oversee, and I work with a group of talented content and design people. Our social media group also sits in our group. So anyway, we utilize, as you know, a lot of channels to get the word out about the Rangers, and part of so my role is to kind of oversee the creative work. My background is as a writer, so nobody wants me designing anything. But anyhow, so I'm grateful to work with a group of talented people that I do.
Yeah, you're the leader that brings everybody together and makes sure everybody's on task. And
yes, yeah. And a lot of that is with regard to like strategy and how we want to approach the season. And the way that we do it is we kind of divide the season up into mini seasons. As you guys know, it's a really long season. And so, for example, we'll be rolling out some summer messaging here in the next month. So anyhow, part of it is working on the strategy side as well with our senior VP of marketing and kind of determining what we want to do. But yeah,
I've never thought about that. It does kind of baseball spans over like 3, different seasons.
Yeah, like 6 or 8 months. Yeah.
I mean, Texas, it's kind of one season, but really it is 3 seasons.
You're right. And, add to that a product that, none of us have any idea what the product's going to look like in a month or 2 months from now, whether that's performance or injury, just there are a myriad of factors that we have to kind of take into consideration. So we try and be nimble, but you're right. We effectively host 81 events a year here during the regular season, and so we're promoting every one of them, and hoping that fans will come out and join us for a game.
Wow.
So how do you do that? I was just thinking about that because the last few years have been pretty rough for the team. So as you get, like, you finish the season and you get to this season, which seems more hopeful. You've got a new manager, you've got an ace pitcher. So how is it different from previous years? Because you're kind of, when the team's not great, you're selling hope.
That's right.
And when the team's great, you're selling results.
Yeah.
So was there a change in how y'all looked at things coming into this season? Because it looked more like you were going to have better results than it has been.
Yes, although fundamentally, this is our 3rd year of our Straight Up Texas campaign. So that's our brand campaign that we've had since 2021. And what we like about that, to your point, Scott, is to me, the word up is a really powerful word.
Yeah.
And, it does speak to hope. It speaks to, the foundation that the team was setting. It spoke to kind of the attitude internally, which was, as Chris Young and others kind of proclaimed, it's like 2023 is a year that we're going to be competing. And so we knew that was the target. And one of the things I like about Straight Up Texas is it not only represents sort of like a belief set and a value set of the organization, but that word up suggests that, no, we're going in the right direction. And so even back in 2021, when we had some hard times, the hope we were selling was like, no, we're moving in the right direction though. So we love our Straight Up Texas campaigin, and for that reason, among others.
Yeah, that's so cool.
Yeah, that's perfect.
So do you have a hand in branding like Globe Life Park in particular, or just
so I joined the organization in 2019, and I'm not sure I could have picked a more eventful 4 years to be here. So
COVID, new stadium.
Yeah. So when I joined, we were moving out of Globe Life Park. It was our last season in this really beloved ballpark. And there was so much emotion and feelings that fans had towards the place, myself included. And so that was very much a, saying goodbye and, a lot of nostalgia with regard to that. But at the same time, we were looking at blueprints of this new ballpark across the street. And it's like, great. And we'd sit in meetings, a few of us here in the marketing group is like, well, how many have built a ballpark before? And like, there weren't many hands raised. Yeah. So in that instance, we did have a strong hand in that, because as soon as we'd see the blueprints, it's like, okay, there's some walls that we can work with and tell stories on. And so to think of a ballpark, as we often do with things like uniforms as well, like we just think about these canvases for storytelling, and a ballpark is really a remarkable space to do that in. So we had a heavy hand in determining what goes on the walls. We worked with a lot of people internally, with the architects, just sort of determining like, what's the feel we're after.
Yeah.
And, we wrote, it was supposed to launch opening day 2020. We had this manifesto, or sort of the voice of the new ballpark, welcoming fans and making a distinction between house and home. So, for us, everything, all the decisions that were made on the architecture side were like everything, how do we make this feel more like home?
Yeah.
And so a lot of our creative decisions were fueled by that. Of course, no one ever saw the manifesto because we opened to cardboard fans, and 2020 was nothing like any of us envisioned.
That's right.
But it was, to answer your question, yeah, we did have a hand in kind of how this place, Globe Life Field looks, and it was really fun to say goodbye to Globe Life Park. There were just countless memories that we encountered from fans, and just these rich stories. It was it was really cool.
Well, why we were so fond of Globe Life Park is, were you at the stadium before that? Because we sat on a lot of metal bleachers.
Stadium, yeah.
That's why we love that stadium so much, because it bailed us out from like sitting on hot metal bleachers. Oh, it was so hot and so terrible. So
I know.
Yeah, so we remember that change, and it was so nice. And then we also, got to take a tour of the new stadium, and I love all the nod to the speakeasy is probably my favorite.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
Probably my favorite part of the new.
Yeah, the speakeasy is a really cool place, and it was a ton of fun for us to kind of work with. Again, I didn't have any hand in the decor or the theme of that place. But it did seem an appropriate place to post some of those photos where it's like, oh, the Rugi Punch and Nolan, taking it to Ventura, and some of those moments in Rangers history, we call that wall Ranger Danger, and just kind of the more colorful moments in history that seemed befitting of a speakeasy.
Yeah.
Because the speakeasy was originally under Arlington Baptist, where that's at, right? Mm-hmm. If I remember the history correctly.
Right.
Yeah.
Down the road on Division.
Yeah, there's a whole history that I wasn't aware of when I joined the organization about like Arlington is top of the hill, and just a really fascinating and colorful chapter in the city of Arlington that was news to us.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, so we've talked about the stadium and how you set all that up. Now we're talking about jerseys, and we're talking about the City Connect. And it's a pretty big deal. It's something that's been going on in the majors for 2 or 3 years now. Like maybe 5 or 6 teams are doing it each year, I think. They're kind of slowly rolling them out. So we wanted to talk to you about that. There's a lot going on in these jerseys, and we want to and I love that. Like when I first saw them, I was like, okay, I need a minute. And I was talking to a buddy that we're big Ranger fans, and I was like, we were both like, we need to see it in action, because just seeing a picture, it's like, I need to see how it moves and works on the field. And after I saw that, I'm like, these are good.
You creatives. The rest of us are like, hey.
We're like,
right, yeah.
So take us through that whole process. Like, I know it was kind of Nike kind of initiated this for the teams to come up with something that connects with the city you're in and all that.
Yeah.
So take us through that process, the creative process of designing all this.
Sure. Yeah, it was maybe one of the most rewarding, if not the most rewarding and challenging projects that I personally have had to undertake or been involved with. And so it started, to answer your question, back in May of 2020.
Oh, wow.
So we go back, 35 months from launch, and it started, as you pointed out, you're right, it's an MLB and Nike initiative, and roughly half a dozen teams every season participate. So there are more to come. Seattle just launched theirs, as you may know, a few days ago. Atlanta was before us. But when we started on this process back in May of 2020, that was really our first contact with Nike with regard to the uniforms. And that was us helping them understand kind of our values, something about this region, this city, filling out a questionnaire. Honestly, several of us did from the organization and provided to Nike. Here's kind of who we are, and here's some information about the region that you may or may not know. So it started, way back then. And as any creative process goes, it's fairly iterative. It doesn't necessarily heed to a nice and tidy timeline. There were stops and starts and twists and turns. And the process, though, is that Nike does all the design. So all the the logo, the different elements on the uniform were created by the Nike design team. I think for us, it was really important and understandable for someone, again, these guys, based in Portland, trying to tell a Texas story based on our questionnaire. There's some sensitivity and nuances, and the biggest challenge, as you guys have maybe heard us say or seen, is like, how do you design a City Connect jersey when you wear the name of the largest state represented in Major League Baseball? So from that standpoint, it just would have been so much easier if we had just one city. We were like Dallas, Fort Worth, Arlington. That was the name that we wore. But we tried to honor the City Connect nomenclature. And but as you know, like we're here in Arlington, which has been such an incredible support for the team. But there's also Dallas and Fort Worth, these two major markets that we also wanted to pay homage to. So it was, and then to say nothing of the fact that we wear Texas, 1,200 plus cities. So like it was a bit of a threading of the needle. I think from the outset, we knew we wanted to tell a baseball story. Mm-hmm. So we joked, it's like, we could have just done a brisket uniform or a Blue Bonnets uniform or something that just would have been Texas Chamber of Commerce type stuff. And great, we're done.
Very generic.
Yeah. And, for us, it was just because we thought it's a baseball jersey, let's just tell a baseball story. And so that sent us down, into history. And it happened to coincide with our 50th anniversary that we celebrated last year. Mm-hmm. So we were already kind of digging into the origin story of the Rangers. And my role was sort of lead the story charge on it. And there were just some things that I discovered that I thought were so fascinating. And when we landed on some of the ways that our origin story really pays off a City Connect story, I think that's when we got really excited, and we provided Nike with like, okay, this is the story we really want to tell. Yeah. And then they came back to us with the designs. But as I said, I want to clarify, it's not like we spent 3 years designing what a Peagle looks like. It was just a very iterative process, and again, some surprises along the way. But we'll have these for 3 years. We wear them on Friday nights, and so I think we have 12 more wears for this season. But anyhow, it was a really fascinating process, particularly again for someone like me who just views things as a canvas to tell a story. And that's really how we viewed the uniform.
Yeah, for sure.
So from 2020, when did it get locked down and they started making them? When did you know, okay, this is the final design?
It was, pretty close to the beginning of 22.
Okay.
So I think it was late 21 when we had a really good sense of what it was going to look like. And so and then after that, it's just some fine tuning, some small tweaks, moving of positions maybe, but but you have to allow for that kind of lead time. If you may recall, there were supply chains issues happening, and so the deadlines were fairly aggressive in terms of, even though you're not rolling out till April of 23, we need to know by it's like 16 months in advance or whatever it was, to allow for manufacturing, to allow for all the merchandise that goes with it. So it was a long process, and probably the hardest part was not being able to tell anyone about it.
You're sitting on it for a year.
Wow, that's crazy.
Yeah, and we just came to affectionately call it the burden of secrecy that we all bore. And quite literally, when we launched, I sent my family a text message with a link to our website. It's like, well, here it is.
So your family didn't even know. You couldn't even tell them. Like, no, this is spy stuff here.
And we decided we'd make terrible spies.
Yeah.
And we're so they knew I was working on something, but I think all of us internally, because as you guys have probably seen, like many teams, including Seattle and Atlanta this year, they had leaks, and so many of the teams had leaks from various sources. And I think all of us internally just said, well, we're not going to be the source of the leak. If it happens somewhere else, then it's out of our control. So we were pretty cautious about it. Of course, internally we shared it with all the people that we felt like, kind of needed to know, and, including ownership, and they were really excited about the direction we were going. But yeah, that was one of the hardest parts, was just not being able to tell anyone about it, particularly when Scott, like when you get excited about a creative solution, it's like, I kind of want to tell people.
Yeah.
And, we just couldn't.
Just couldn't. Yeah.
I feel like you're in the FBI for a little while. Like,
yeah,
dear, I just can't tell you what we're
just
working
can't
on.
tell me.
Yeah.
I can tell you.
Very hush hush, man. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, Scott, are you a native Texan?
I grew up in Southern California.
Okay, so yeah, you hit the nail on the head when you talk about like the whole Dallas Fort Worth, and we're here in the middle in Arlington. And I mean, people outside of here, I find we travel a lot, and they don't really understand Dallas Fort Worth being two different cities and their proximity to each other, and understanding that all the fun stuff's in Arlington, all the big fun stuff's in Arlington. So you hit the nail on the head. That's interesting, because the people in Dallas got certain feelings about it. The people in Fort Worth have certain feelings about it, but then we don't have the Arlington Cowboys. We have the Dallas Cowboys, and people feel a certain way about that. And so that's a big deal. So is that where like the campaign title for the Metroplex kind of came from?
Yeah. And you're right. The sensitivities we were, acutely aware of. And so we wanted to make sure we were honoring Arlington, while also kind of recognizing the area, like you said, the Metroplex. So we've got a couple of lines that we use with City Connect. For us, the primary line, and it's on our website, and it's a play on City Connect, because again, for us, we didn't feel like City Connect was totally appropriate. If there was a State Connect, we would have adopted that, but that wasn't part of the nomenclature.
Yeah.
So for us, we wanted to, again, be aware of those sensitivities. And so our main line is that we connect cities.
Yeah.
And that there's a few reasons, or, kind of there's a little bit of thinking behind that. One is that is our origin story with the Dallas Fort Worth Spurs.
Yeah.
Connected Dallas and Fort Worth to pave the way for the Rangers. And if I'm to, again, there's a lot of elements on the uniform, but our one sentence that I think describes it all is that Arlington connected two cities with a rich baseball heritage to pave the way for the Rangers. Like, that's in a nutshell, that's our story. So we connect cities was really important for us, just to get that out and help people understand kind of the why behind some of the choices we made.
Yeah.
And then if you think about, again, 81 times during the regular season, the number of cities that are represented here, like quite functionally, we connect people from all kinds of cities. And in the summer, that grows exponentially with visitors to the area. And then if you think about our Texas that we wear on our chest, like, there's Rangers fans probably in most of the 1,200 cities. So there are a few layers to that. So we connect cities was an important one. For the Metroplex was sort of our rallying cry, or just a reminder to fans that, again, with any uniform, we're designing it for the fans. And we want this to represent the fans, and them to be proud of the fact that we're wearing it and representing. And then there's a subtle nod to one of the characters in our story, the primary character in our story, Tom Vandergriff, where, the former mayor of Arlington, who was so instrumental in getting us here, he actually coined the term Metroplex. Oh. And so that's just a subtle nod to Mayor Vandergriff.
Yeah, I didn't realize that.
Well, and y'all had if you think of other teams, like I think of Seattle and Atlanta this year, to me, they have an easier job, because y'all had to think of the whole area. You have to think of the whole state, pretty much. Mm-hmm. You're talking about 1,200 cities, and how do you take pieces of all that?
Texans are passionate.
Thank you.
And I think sports fans in general are. So when you start messing with their uniforms and their teams, it can get a little dicey.
Yeah.
Because, like you say, people get very territorial about that.
Yeah, that's
so y'all done a great job of like opening this up, and you've got a piece of something for everybody.
Yeah, love it.
Yeah, thank you. And thank you for recognizing the challenge. My appreciation has grown for those who do that. And before we launched, there was a small leak. Our socks got out. And so based on that, we saw a lot of speculation. Yeah, how about that?
Yeah.
Because the socks were kind of like, they looked like they were red and black. It was a great photo. There was a spur on it. And so people were speculating what it might be. And in the midst of the speculation, we would hear local writers, radio personalities kind of talk about like, wow, what are they going to do? Like, this is a hard one. And so I was always grateful to have that sense of empathy before we were released, just that people would recognize, well, at least it's, to your point, like it's not just the name of one city that we're representing. So that's what made it a really kind of big challenge.
Yeah. Okay, so let's talk about this amazing jersey. We've got the main logo here.
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit.
And thank you for representing, by the way.
Yes,
guys, it looks great on you guys.
Well, yeah, this is my son's. He bought it the night it came out. He went to that game, and then I bought a hat yesterday. So
yes, he got the hat,
we're assembling our uniforms piece by piece here.
I love it. I love it.
Yeah, I just brought the baby into the picture. I mean, it's just
pull
cowboy Texas, it just fit. So the main logo here, which is adorable. So tell us a little bit about that. What was your thoughts here?
Sure. Yeah, we so as part of the process with Nike, we provided with them, once we established we want to tell our origin story.
Yeah.
They were, they became aware of it. So they had their own mood board, but we did our own kind of mood board and went back to, when we think about rich baseball heritage, we think about, the Fort Worth Panthers or Cats. So they became the Cats in like the 30s. But they were like this minor league dynasty, and they're known as one of the greatest minor league teams in history. Yeah. And, they won 6 straight Texas League championships. So that was the Fort Worth side. On Dallas has had a number of teams, but the one that really popped out to us, and talking to an older generation of residents, they'll tell you about their days going to Burnett Field and watching the Eagles play. And the Eagles have a really fascinating story. But anyway, those were the two teams that represented Dallas and Fort Worth. And then again, we have the Dallas Fort Worth Spurs as the third team. But with regard to the logo, I mentioned the Eagles because the T is a kind of this old English that was borrowed off of the Dallas Eagles cap that they wore in the 50s. Okay. And so think like, it's kind of like the Detroit Tigers, sort of that style, a bit of old Gothic. Yeah. And so the designers at Nike borrowed from that kind of to create the T, and kind of carried it through with the X, and they added that crossbar through the X, just to give it like a little bit of an attitude. And then also at the end, you see the spur, which is a shout out to the Dallas Fort Worth Spurs. And, I would say overall, if I go back to the goal of City Connect, which is expanding the fan base. And so it's reaching, a younger audience, maybe like your son, who kind of sees it and can almost kind of claim it as their own. It's not their dad's, like my son, who really likes the look. For him, some of it's probably like, oh, it's not my dad's Rangers. Like, this is the look that I'm going to kind of gravitate towards. So a lot of the choices that were made, and the TX is a good example of it, and there's like a touch of modernity to it. So while the cream color is meant to evoke a bit of the throwback days of the Eagles and Spurs and Cats, the designs err on the side of like, there's a touch of modernity to it. So we want to make sure that it feels like, while we honor the past, we want to look towards the future. And that was really important for the designers at Nike and for us too. So, yes, that's our main logo on both the hat and the jersey. Yeah.
So we have 421 on the back of this hat, and I think it's on the back
of on the inside of the
inside of my shirt. So where does 421 come from?
Yeah, well, 421, this is a way for us to kind of pay homage to Texas history, to baseball in Texas history, and then to Rangers in Texas history. Now, if I start at the beginning, April 21st is San Jacinto Day. And after I moved here from California, I started to understand like what that means to Texans. And that's obviously a really important date in the history of Texas. April 21st, one of the things, April 21st, 1972 was our first home game for the Rangers. So our first game at Arlington Stadium. And what's interesting about that is that was only the case because there was a labor issue in Major League Baseball, which delayed the original opening day a few days from to 421. And as we were researching this, and by we, I say I, because like I dug really deep into history and kind of geeked out on this stuff. But if you go to some of the historical archives, you'll see that some call it the first baseball game, first recorded baseball game in Texas history. Others call it the first state championship game in Texas baseball history, was on April 21st, 1868.
Oh, okay.
And so there was this symmetry that lined up. And when we saw the schedule and we knew we were going to pay homage to April 21st, that's an important date. And again, in our history and state baseball history, that our first Friday night home game of the 2023 season of our City Connects, when we wanted to roll these out on a Friday, was April 21st, was just this symmetry that's like, oh, that's amazing.
Yeah.
So yeah, we celebrated 421 during our 50th anniversary, did some storytelling around there. There's a whole aspect of the origin story that is we didn't tell with our jersey. That's fascinating as well. But anyway, so that's the significance of 421.
Cool. Yeah.
Okay, so now we had toward the bottom of the jersey, we have a little quote. So what's the quote and where does that come from?
Yeah, that's taken from, I think it's inscribed on a statue at Arlington City Hall of Mayor Vandergriff. And Mayor Vandergriff, as you guys probably know, is a really remarkable story. Outside of our ballpark, there's a statue. It was over at Globe Life Park. You probably saw it, which calls him the father of baseball in Arlington. And it's quite true. And his journey to get the Rangers to Texas is a remarkable one. And his grandson Parker has been really helpful to us in this process, and has, he's kind of become the family archivist of everything that Tom kept. And fortunately, Tom kept a lot, including all the rejection letters that he got from all these major league teams when he was trying to get a team to move here. But I think what impresses us is that at the time in the 50s, Arlington was a relatively small and sleepy town. It's not the vibrant entertainment district, that it is today.
Yeah.
And he just had a vision of like, man, we can do this. And, 30,000 people situated on the turnpike, right in between two big cities. And these two big cities, by the way, did not get along. And, so that rivalry for us, from a story, for me anyway, just provides a bit of the tension in our story.
Yeah.
And then Arlington emerges as a viable option and a solution, but it wasn't a quick fix. I mean, Mayor Vandergriff pursued this for 13 years until, he finally was able to get the senators to move here.
Yeah.
So we wanted to pay homage to Mayor Vandergriff. He's such a central figure in our origin story. And so that quote, "Dream the big dream," not only comes from that statue at City Hall, but it really reflects sort of, he was a visionary. And to talk to people who knew him, they would just tell you, like, he saw things that none of us saw. And he saw the potential for this region when very few others did. And so it really is like I love the story of Tom Vandergriff. He characterizes, if I go back to Straight Up Texas, for us, he's exhibit A of our Straight Up Texas campaign. Optimism, resilient, proud of this region, fearless. So there's a lot of traits that he embodied that we love to celebrate.
Yeah.
Because not everyone would stick through 13 years of being rejected. It's like,
no,
when you go, maybe this isn't a good idea. Maybe I should try something else. But it's good.
Exactly.
Because it's totally what Arlington is now.
Yeah.
What he was doing is exactly what Arlington is. So it's And
I was telling someone a story not long ago when I was in the gift shop buying a Peagle hoodie in our Grand Slam team store. Standing just a few feet from me was Tom Grieve, Mr. Ranger.
Yeah.
And Tom, of course, he voiced our explainer video to help people understand, kind of our uniform and the choices we made. But when I was standing there and talking to Tom, we were talking about the City Connect program and the collection, and he talked about how the city of Arlington, not only did Tom see these things, but he knew how to get things done, Tom Vandergriff, and how that really has been passed. That's just maintained as a core tenet of Arlington. Like, it continues to be a city, like the American dream city, that gets things done.
Yeah.
And I thought that was a really interesting observation, and again, definitely worth celebrating.
Yeah. So even on the pants, like you see the pinstripe, what is even the stripe down the leg means something, right? There's a symbolism to that as well. Yeah.
It does. Yeah. There, every element has a reason, a why, and that in particular ties back to the Dallas-Fort Worth Spurs. They had this, I'm not sure it ages particularly well, but if you go back to a program from 1965 of the Dallas-Fort Worth Spurs, you'll see their Spurs was written in sort of this lariat.
Okay.
Font. And so the designers at Nike thought that was a really interesting way to kind of pay tribute to the Spurs in that way. And then also on the pant is the actual kind of reimagined Spur logo that they used when they were in existence from they just preceded the Rangers.
Yeah, that's so cool.
Okay.
Finally, we have to talk about the Peagle. And let me tell
Let's
you.
talk Peagle.
Let me tell you.
It's brilliant.
My 20-year-old son, the one that owns this jersey, and we coach a 12U baseball team. This past Saturday, we had a game at 11 o'clock in the morning, and we meet, and at the end of every half inning, and we're putting our hands in, and they're 12U, they're not little kids, they're big enough, and they get to say, what are we gonna yell? All hands in, go team, whatever we're gonna say. And we said Peagle more times than I can even think. This past Saturday, it is permeating little leagues all across the Metroplex and probably further reaching in Texas. We don't even know how big the Peagle is. They all love it.
Ready? Peagle power on 3. 1, 2, 3, Peagle power!
So tell us about the Peagle.
Yes, the Peagle. I am delighted to hear that story.
Yes,
that truly makes my day.
Yeah.
The Peagle is, again, shout out to Nike, because when we told them, here's the story we want to tell, and a large part of our, just the baseball heritage from Dallas and Fort Worth is, the Panthers and the Eagles. And so they came back with this, what we, quickly dubbed the Peagle, this mythical creature. And when we saw it, it's one of those things that when you see it, it's just like, what?
Yeah.
And then it's like, that's actually really cool. Like, let's go with it. And, again, to go back to the purpose of City Connect, it is to kind of engage and to beg a question. Through this process, we came up with the 5 stages of City Connect. Like, how do we want our fans to feel? And the first was surprised. The next was provoked. And the next was satisfied after learning why we've made a choice. And so the Peagle fits really neatly into that, where the first time you see it, it's like, what? Like, this is the Texas Rangers, right? And then when you understand kind of the genesis of it, or the why behind it, like it makes sense. And it has been, and we knew it would be the element that got the most discussion, just because, I'm not sure there's anything particularly Texas or Rangers about the Peagle, just on its own objectively. But it fits so well into the narrative of our origin story. And so when we saw it, it was, we were really delighted. Travis Dillon, our senior VP of marketing, recalls that, that moment of nervousness, sharing it with ownership, just like, this could go one of 2 ways.
Right. Yeah.
And one is not really good. But, they totally got it and understood it and embraced it and loved it. So it has been fun to see it sort of take on a life of its own. And, for us, it's like, okay, let's not get in the way of this. Let's let it flourish. And, but I think it's safe to say we'll be seeing more Peagle merchandise here sometime in the near future.
Totally down with more Peagle.
Yeah, exactly what you wanted to happen happened with me, which was I was surprised, and then I was provoked, and then I was satisfied. Exactly what you said is all the emotions I went through. I was like, what are y'all saying? And then I finally got to figure out, and now we're yelling it in our huddles at the end of Peagle power. Yeah. Yes. So it has done exactly what you wanted.
I know it, and that it coincided, our launch on 4/21. We didn't win that game, but the next day when Adolis had his monster day, and then just to see how much of it was attributed to Peagle power was really satisfying. And so it's just become, we have a ton of fun with it up here. I think I saw on Reddit someone had actually 3D printed a actual Peagle, like dimensionally accurate. Yeah. And there's all kinds of theories as to its origin and whatever. So it's been really fun to see come to life.
So how did the team react when they got their first look at the jersey? Were you around for that?
Well, for some of it,
Okay.
we revealed it. So as I mentioned earlier, it was a secret to
Yes.
everybody. It was sort of a need to know basis. And so the players didn't see it until spring training of this year.
Okay.
Okay.
And we did two things there. One was we shot a number of the players for our promotional videos and for the photography that we can use during the season. So there was a handful of players that we, were going to use for that. But then, it's like, man, we really didn't, part of it felt unfair to give them the burden of secrecy. And it's like, let's just share it with the entire team, which is really different from the way other teams have done it. So I think, there have been a few others that have done it, but most have not done it that way. And the players were very positive on it. And it's one of those things that I think we all have experienced, that once you know the story, they become even more enamored with it. So it was a really positive response we got from them. I'm really glad that we shared it with the entire group in surprise.
Yeah.
And they understood the assignment. Like, there were no leaks coming from the players.
Yeah, I was going to say, how did they feel about not being able to say anything? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think they honored it, and we just respectfully asked, like, no phones, like, let's not take any pictures of here, just file it away, and soon enough it'll be public. But so yeah, they reacted well. When we were shooting some of our players for our promotional pieces, it was interesting to talk to each of them, and some of them reacted really, like John Gray was absolutely in love with them. For guys like Martin Perez and Josh Young, the cream kind of took them back to wearing cream from previous.
Yeah.
For Martin, it was in Venezuela. He wore like a cream, and they won a championship, and so he was like, "Oh, these give me championship vibes." Cool. And Josh reminded of his playing days at Tech. So it was a really great response. I think a lot of it, quite honestly, was around how do I pair my cleats with. How do I accessorize, right?
Yeah, what goes with this?
With dark pants.
That's
so our art director Cole Smith like mocked up, like, okay, great. Here's what it looks like with red and with pitch blue and with cream, and so that was fun to do at spring training. Just sit down with the guys, and it's like, well, here are some options, and so anyhow, and that largely was around kind of the dark, the pitch blue pants that But again, that too is one of the bold choices that we wanted to make as we think about kind of the spirit of the City Connect uniforms.
Yeah.
Well, it's just amazing in social media in this era of social media that y'all kept it so secret.
Yeah.
That's impressive.
That's impressive.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we searched every day, particularly as we got closer to the date, it was a popular search term here, just to see if anyone was like, we saw a lot of guesses, saw a lot of early designs, serious and not so serious.
Yeah.
And so we were delighted that it didn't leak.
So when the socks were leaked, like, how much time do you spend thinking about who did that?
And what happened to them?
Or do you just skip over it? You skip over it and you move on, or are you like, we got to figure out who that was?
Well, I think I'm not exactly sure, but we weren't the only ones. But all 6 of the teams, their socks leaked. And so
interesting.
Yeah, so somewhere along in the manufacturing process, that's what happened.
Yeah. That's
so we weren't targeted. I think it was just
okay. Yeah.
They weren't trying to bring the Rangers down.
Right.
It was all teams.
And on the uniform,
exactly.
you have your own thoughts on the coloring, and like you're saying, how they're going to accessorize. Like a batter would come to the plate and you'd be like, okay, I really like it with the red shoes
with
or something.
More red.
Like you've got your own like thought of like how that looks cohesive to you. I'm sure everybody has their own thoughts on that. So that's super interesting.
Yeah, and the red is what Nike calls a speed red. And like, I love, so seeing the swoosh, on your jersey, like how it pops, and then the number on the back. And that too was like, that typography comes from a medal that the Fort Worth Panthers won in 1920. Oh, wow. So again, there's just like a kind of a reason for everything. But yeah, the red, we love, the way it accessorized, like it looks pretty cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. It makes it all pop.
Yeah.
So we did very informal Instagram scientific poll
I
here.
saw that. Yeah.
Yeah, and because you talk about provoking, and no matter what you do, there's going to be people that love it, and then there's going to be people that like what is happening here.
Yeah.
So
Of
in our
course.
poll, 45% of the people loved it, which I was one of those. It took me a minute to get there, like I said. 18% didn't like it, and 27%, which you were kind of in that. You voted,
I was
like undecided. Like I still haven't really figured it out. So as a creative, I know how it is. Like when you're putting, no matter how many people are working on it, you feel like you're putting part of yourself out there when you're creating something. So what does it feel like? You're working with a passionate fan base. What does it feel like when you're putting it out there and you know, okay, we're going to get reactions. Some are going to be good, some are going to be bad. So what does that feel like when you know you're going to get reactions like that?
I love the spirit of that question because it was something that we grappled with, and I grappled with particularly. I think the positive side is the word to use. Like, it's a passionate fan base and they care. And so the worst would have been to releasing them to crickets and no one caring and apathy.
Right, yeah.
So hate is not the opposite of love; it's apathy.
Yeah.
And so at least it provoked, it got a reaction.
Yeah.
And I think intellectually, like again, we having lived with this for 3 years and watching the reaction to other teams that went before us, uniforms are just they're a lightning rod.
Yeah.
And it's going to get a reaction. And you realize that it's more than just laundry.
Yeah.
Right, that it represents something that is near and dear to our fans. And so on the positive side, I guess I would go in that direction, that it was good to like see that at least people are paying attention and they care. But again, intellectually, we knew that we were not going to please everyone, and in fact that we'd probably get a pretty strong early backlash, which happened.
Yeah.
And and so while intellectually we knew it was on every brief that we wrote and just kind of preparing everyone, but still, like, emotionally, you're right, Scott, like it hurt a little bit because
right, yeah.
you
want everybody to like it, but that's not possible at the same time.
Of course, yeah. And we entered in, I'm sure the same with the other teams, like nobody enters into this lightly. You sort of understand, like, people care about this stuff and people will have a reaction. And so you want to come as close to, to pleasing, your fans as you can. And so I think, it was hard to come to grips with. I think what's been gratifying is that you just had this knee-jerk reaction, let's call it through civil and measured discourse that we see on Twitter. And so we, when we released on April 17th, there was a ton of that. But over time, as people start to understand the why, and this has been true just anecdotally, what I've witnessed from other teams is that sentiment comes around when people start to understand the why. And it's like, oh, that's why they made those choices. Like, now I understand. So those last parts, the 5 stages beyond satisfied, is like schooled, like, now I understand, and stoked. It's like, great, I'm really excited about this. So we haven't got to stoked level with everybody, but we're working on it. And honestly, that's one of the reasons I'm really glad to be on with you all, is just a chance to be able to spread the story and help people understand sort of the why behind the choices we made.
Absolutely.
But
so on the 21st, what was it like for your creative team to finally, like, you're seeing all these efforts on the field now? So what was it like for y'all?
Yeah, it was incredible. There were actually a couple of days that kind of were surreal. One of them goes back to spring training, when we actually saw players through our shoot wearing the jerseys.
Yeah.
So, up until now, we'd seen samples. Most of it was just 2D flat art. And now to see actual Major League Baseball players in these was amazing. And we could literally tell everyone, it's like, those look really good. Like, those look good on you.
Yeah.
And then when we released on 4/17, most of us were in the team store, just kind of watching the fan reaction, seeing how they were interacting. We got to tell our story through some media outlets. So that was a really special day. Although, again, we sort of had to withstand some backlash and, people who weren't so stoked on our new uniforms. But yeah, the 21st was a super special day. our 421, here we sort of think of it now as a bit of a holiday. And so we had our whole front office gathered. Chuck Morgan and Travis and I got to tell the story to our employees, make sure everybody understood, recognize a few people who had a huge role in it. And so it started off like with that vibe, which is really positive and fun. And then, during the day, we got down to the field, saw some of the players wearing them before the game. And when the game started and saw them take the field in it, like that was, again, one of those moments that just borders on surreal.
Yeah.
So it was fantastic. For me, I spent the third inning in the TV booth with Dave and CJ, which was a totally new experience and super fun. And so it was great to be with those guys for an inning. My family was here with us at the ballpark, our marketing team, and family. We all had a big space here that we were, just able to celebrate the moment.
Yeah.
So it was a really special night.
Yeah.
And super fun.
Real talk, Scott, did you tear up a little bit when they took the field? Just a little?
Close. Yeah. I mean, I appreciate the question because it was really emotional.
Yeah.
And part of it was we'd released it a few days earlier, but being able now to talk freely about this thing, right, and then to see it represented on the field was really exciting.
Yes. Well, speaking of an emotional experience, when Scott walked onto Fenway for the first time and like crested into the field, I mean, he literally stood there and had tears in his eyes.
I did. It was a moment.
We saw
I'm with you
on Instagram that you got to go to Fenway with your dad and your son. And tell us a little bit about that experience for you. Was that like a field you've always wanted to go to, and that was bucket list for you? Had you bet your first time there?
I had been before, but neither my dad nor my son had been.
Yeah.
And I'm the type, maybe you guys plan your family vacation around home games of different teams.
But we do, definitely.
We're checking off the stadiums.
Exactly. Yeah. So I was doing that with my son, and whether it was on business trips or whatever else, family vacations, that was always an important piece for me, was to take him to some different parks. And our entire family, so my parents, my sisters and their families and our family, we were all going to be in Boston at this particular time. It turned out to coincide with the Friday home game. Yeah. And so there was about 7 of us that made it to Fenway. And just the idea of the kind of the 3-gen experience.
Yes.
We celebrated a lot of that when we said goodbye to Globe Life Park. And it was I would say I didn't go to sleep immediately after we got home. I was just on such an adrenaline high. It was so fun. And part of it was just sharing that experience with, the guy who taught me baseball and my son who I taught baseball to. It was just, it was really special and meaningful. And plus it was a beautiful night. And anyway, that was a really special experience. I appreciate the question.
Yeah. Do you have a favorite field that you like, that you've been to? Or maybe,
probably have a couple answers to that. I think both Fenway and Wrigley, just because of the history, have this like, really special place, in my heart. I grew up going to Dodger Stadium, and that's a special place as well. So there are a number of parks, and I would say when we were building Globe Life Field, part of what's great about this industry is the generosity of other teams. And so we could pick up the phone and call our friends at the Braves, for example, who had just built Truist Park, and they would tell us, be sure and do this, don't do that. And because we don't compete, and just in terms of marketing or a rising tide sort of mentality. So being able to go to different parks and arenas, even just to see what people are doing with art and storytelling on the walls, was really helpful to us. So there's that element as well. But as a baseball fan, like Wrigley and Fenway are probably
I think Wrigley's probably my favorite. We've got a dog laying right over there whose name is Wrigley.
Right. Yeah.
And when we get a dog, his name will be Fenway.
Yeah.
So we're on that path. We've been checking some stadiums off our list too.
Well, and the awesome part is with sports, and specifically baseball, it's one of the last places that we can all, even with our politics and all that, when you love a team, everybody can get together there was 40,000 yesterday when we were at the game, and you can imagine how many different philosophies and politics were there. But you can focus in and have that fun time with everyone.
Yeah.
And I think that's what's still important about sports, and with doing uniforms like y'all done and all, is like it's like a unifying moment when you can go to a sporting event and just cheer together.
Even when you're playing the Yankees.
Right. We can all cheer against the Yankees, so that's easy. Yeah.
Yeah, and even they're always well represented here.
Are.
They're about half the crowd
at
everywhere
every field.
Yeah.
At every field we've ever gone to, there's always Yankee fans there.
Yeah.
And it was nice to see some empty seats midway through the game.
Yeah. Yeah.
I didn't want to see it. Yeah, that's nice.
Exactly.
Chased
Scott,
them away.
We can't thank you enough for taking time to talk to us and work us through this whole creative process. I know he's just eating up
it's so cool.
all the things out of your mind, and I just appreciate you taking time today to talk to us. It's been a real
my pleasure.
It's been a real joy. So maybe we'll catch up with you at a Ranger game somewhere along the way.
Please let me know when you're when coming out the ballpark. It'd be great to see you guys.
That would be wonderful.
Okay, and we should end with Peagle Power.
Peagle Power. That's
Peagle Power to you.
Yes.
Thanks, Scott.
Thank you so much, Scott. Have a great day.
Take care.
Thank you all. Bye-bye.
Okay, now I'm totally vibing with these shirts. Now that I know exactly what every detail means, I think that was so interesting.
You needed to hear the whole story.
I needed to hear the whole story
and feel the emotion of each element.
And I don't know how you creatives do it, because I now want to go up to every single person that's wearing one of these and say, do you know the story? Do you know everything? Do you know everything about what you're wearing? And let me explain it to you.
So you've become a Peagle apologist. So now every Ranger game we go to, is there a certain number of people that you're going to try to convert to Peagle Power?
I'm going to say a good number is 7.
Okay.
I'm going with David Murphy 7.
So you're going to try to convert people to the Peagle Power situation.
I think I'm going to have to go up to people not wearing the shirt and say, why aren't you wearing the shirt? I don't think you understand what it means. And now you need to go to the gift shop and buy one. I'll just stand outside the gift shop.
There you go. Maybe you can get a job with the Rangers. It's like you're selling multi-level marketing. You're like, do you have like 15 minutes? I want to share something with you that could really change your life.
That's exactly what I'm going to do.
There you go.
Next Ranger game that we go to.
Yeah.
We hope you guys enjoy this interview with Scott Biggers. I hope you run out and buy you a Cityscape shirt, because you're going to love it, or a hat, or a Peagle sweatshirt. Who doesn't want a Peagle sweatshirt? I kind of want a Peagle sweatshirt.
Yeah, I was looking for one at the game last night. I'm gonna track that down.
Yeah, we got to do that. Party 5.5 over and out.
We'll see you next time.